What role do the overseas Filipinos play in elections?
Well, right now, as a result of what Congressman Locsin did, the numbers are not there.
Right.
I mean, if we were to really empower people, if we were to give people the right to vote, because if people don't have the right to vote, then politicians don't need to court their vote, don't need to entertain their issues. And so we will continue to have the situation where
Right.
Overseas Filipinos, they have to pay $25 to the OWA fund, the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration. But that OWA fund, which has a trust fund of about 14 billion pesos, doesn't go to where it should go. In fact, there's no auditing for where the funds go. If overseas Filipinos had the right to vote, they would be able to demand that Congress amend the law, change it, make it more transparent and more able to to address the issues of overseas Filipinos.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, though. In the 2010 elections, in a close race, the overseas vote actually can become important. In Hong Kong, in Singapore, for example, there's sizable communities. The United States is
right.
So in a senatorial race where it only takes those numbers could make a difference.
Right, and the thing about overseas voters is they're not subject to bribe. I mean, people in the U.S. You can't bribe their votes, so through the internet they can be able to read and analyze and understand through the satellite TV. I mean, ABS-CBN has 250,000 subscribers in the U.S. and I think GMA has 125,000. So you have a very informed community. It's not a situation where people abroad don't know what's going on in the Philippines.
You've been away for more than 40 years.
Yes.
You've lived in the United States for more than 40 years. Why do you still care?
You can't ever erase, people can be out in body but never in heart, as we would like to say. I mean, this is still the land of your birth. I mean, you can't ever erase what you are. I mean, you are a Filipino. You cannot change your identity, you can't change your culture, nor would you want to, because that's what we are.
And is it possible to harness the Filipinos who are in the United States to actually be a potent political force?
And we are. I mean, when Marcos was in power, it was the withdrawal of U.S. support by Reagan that brought the downfall. We'd always been saying from day one, without U.S. support, the Marcos dictatorship would not last. And so when in fact that happened, and now we were demonstrating in front of all of these places. We went to the State Department. A few months after Marcos declared martial law, we met with Senator Alan Cranston of California, and he delivered a speech on the floor of the Senate denouncing Marcos and martial law. And we had rallies and demonstrations,
So you're actually influencing two governments in
Right.
this. You're as American citizens, you're pushing American policy and
Yes.
lobbying in the American. At the same time, you're also pushing the Philippine
Correct.
government. What can be done now?
Well, what we'd like is if people who are informed can write the COMELEC with pressure of some kind to have COMELEC rescind their resolution. I also want to say that there's a legal component to what they did. The removal of the voters based on failure to vote in 2 consecutive elections is based on a 1965 law that applies to voters in the Philippines.
Yes.
We submit that the 1987 Constitution,
Supersedes.
setting aside a system of governance, creates a different framework.
Yes.
Now, the 2003 Overseas Absentee Voting Act lists 5 bases for disqualification as a registered voter. None of that includes a provision saying failure to vote in 2 consecutive elections. So what they did is they applied a law regarding the Philippines, where people who live in the Philippines, there's no reason for you not to be able to vote in 2 consecutive elections.
Right.
The situation is vastly different for people who are overseas, who are on ships, who
Yes.
are in houses where there are no numbers. So that's a factor that's vastly different. And so you can't apply a Philippine law in 1965 to a law in 2003 that's governed by a different provision of the Philippine Constitution.
Fantastic. So it's in COMELEC's hands right now.
COMELEC's hands.
Do you plan to talk to COMELEC
We have a
about this?
meeting on Friday with, at the COMELEC, and we hope to be able to persuade them. It may be too late to file a lawsuit and go up to the Philippine Supreme Court, but we hope that COMELEC can be able to see this issue.
The last question, Rodel, is moving forward now. I mean, what do you think will happen? Why are these May 2013 elections important, and why do you want the right to vote there?
Well, we want to be able to have part in the governance. I mean, it's taxation without representation when people are remitting 23.5 billion at a time when the economy is so bad and a time when people are suffering tremendously. They're still remitting a major portion of their salary while they live in squalor in the worst conditions in the Middle East. They're sending money to their families, and that's keeping the Philippine economy afloat. They need to be able to have their voices heard. If they don't have the right to vote, then Congress doesn't have to listen to them. If they can vote, and I think Senator Pimentel said 6 million would be the target, people will start listening. We will have a different mindset with regards to how to look at Filipinos in the diaspora, rather than right now where it's a total indifference, and that's what we want to change.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We've been speaking with lawyer Rodel Rodis, San Francisco-based. He is the president of the US Pinoys for Good Governance. I'm Maria Ressa. Thank you for joining us.